Well, hello, and welcome to the Mid-Week Wednesday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Allstrands. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It looks like the rain is holding off, as was predicted in the forecast today. Might be the driest day of the bunch as we move forward. Listening to Alistair, our weather specialist, earlier today on the drive in, and we see that we're going to have a bit of a rain event, I think, on Friday. Now, the early indications are that this system is going to maybe grab some of the moisture from the passing storm that is Melissa. That storm's staying well off our coast, by the way. We're not going to get any direct impact from that, but it is very large and it has a lot of moisture attached to it. So the concern is that that's going to draw some moisture into our part of the world, some rain. It looks like, at least at this point, that it's going to be a rain event for the day on Friday. I know many of you are looking at that forecast for Friday evening and into Friday night because it is Halloween. So we will keep you up to date on that. Alistair is going to join us on Friday to give us the very latest on that. But if you're still planning to put together, do people wait this long to put together their Halloween costumes these days? Anyway, if you're planning to do that and your kids or maybe yourself are planning to go out trick-or-treating, I think you might want to maybe build some rubber boots and maybe an umbrella or a rain jacket into that costume this time around. Well, how about those Toronto Blue Jays? Holy smokes. The struggle's real, isn't it? If you've in the past had late nights doing something midweek or during the week, and then you go to work the next day, and I'm talking about that 18-inning marathon that we saw on Monday night, and then people staying up watching the whole thing, and then coming to work yesterday in a bit of a groggy state, and then going home and maybe having a nap before they watched the game last night. My experience, and we do it here on occasion on the show when we have an election night or there's a big event and we do a special show, the not necessarily the day after that late night event is the worst. I always find it's the second day after. And today I'm very much feeling that. We stayed up, of course. I didn't make it to the end of the game. I only made it to the 12th inning on Monday night. And then did the show yesterday, went home, had a brief nap, and then listened to the game last night on the radio. And I stayed up for the whole thing because it was exciting. And today I am struggling. It's a grind. I can't imagine what it's like for the players. Maybe they're a little more insulated from stuff because they don't have to go and do their 9 to 5 before they go and do this stuff at night. But it's a grind, right? Anyway, the Jays evening up the series, silencing some of the critics out there who said that after that 18-inning loss to the Dodgers Monday night or Tuesday morning, that it was over, it was done. Ohtani's on the mound, and he's untouchable, so we're going to end up going down 3 games to 1. But that just didn't happen. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., of course, getting all the props today because we like to watch home runs, but I don't think that was really the highlight moment for me in that game. I think the 7th inning was when the Jays managed to score 4, but it wasn't deep ball and it wasn't a grand slam or it wasn't a 2 or 3 run shot. It was that just small ball, hit, base runner, hit, base runner, hit, base runner, and then scoring runs individually against Ohtani. He pitched 6 innings, gave up for 4 hits. He didn't get out of the 7th. They yanked him. As our sports guy Simon Bennett said, maybe he is human, right? Bieber, wow, what an effort from Toronto's pitcher. 5 1/3, just 4 hits. With that Dodgers lineup, that's something to say. Stood up and faced the pressure and managed to help the Blue Jays secure that win last night. So the series now tied at 2. That means a couple of things. One, Game 5 goes tonight. Is it 5? Yes, Game 5 goes tonight. That's all. My brain's foggy. That goes tonight, and because the Jays evened that series up last night, that means we've got at least one more game in Toronto, and that's going to happen on Halloween. So it's going to be electric, I think, probably would be a way to describe that. Rogers Centre in Toronto has been a ruckus place through the entirety of the playoff. And I think you're probably going to see that again with this, no matter what happens tonight. It would be nice to come home with that 3-2 series, the so-called stranglehold as it's been described in the sports media for many years. But having all that pressure would be fantastic. But I'm glad that we're going to get at least one more game north of the border in Toronto as the Blue Jays continue to vie for this World Series championship. At the beginning of this, there was a lot of consternation with baseball fans that it wasn't going to be much of a series. I remember taking calls from you all, and some saying that it wasn't going to be close. The Jays might win one and will be done in 5, and it will be very much like the National League Championship Series where the Dodgers dominated the Brewers. But that is not the case this time around. If you sit back and you think about it, that marathon game on Monday, that could have went either way. And one swing of the bat, a few feet more on a hit ball, and we're 3-1 up. So this has been an entertaining series, I think. I learn a lot whenever I watch a World Series. I don't watch a lot of National League teams during the year. So I learn a lot about National League managers and the way that they handle pitchers and hitting situations and those kind of things. And it's been entertaining. It certainly kept everybody engaged. And I think almost to a person that have been behind the Blue Jays here, I don't think there's a lot of naysayers out there right now. I know it's tough when you're a Jays fan. It doesn't really matter. You're always the eternal optimist, particularly if you follow Toronto sports. Right, Leaf fans? That all being said, it's an important game tonight. Did you see all the shots in the crowd last night? Of all the celebrities, Los Angeles, right? Hollywood's right there. So the place was full of celebrities. The one that kind of caught my attention and maybe raised an eyebrow in the crowd last night was the shot in the front row of Harry and Meghan. Prince Harry has often had an affinity for this country, right? They moved to Vancouver when they had their very famous breakup with the royal family, and then they moved to Los Angeles after. But both were sporting Dodgers hats. I was surprised by that. Maybe it's their hometown team, and I get it. And you're in Los Angeles, and there's the playoff experiences happening there, and that's where you make your home. And maybe they are legit Dodgers fans. But it was kind of weird. I was a little bit. I took a kind of a double take. I don't think I was shocked. I think I took a bit of a double take to see maybe a fringe member of the royal family sporting a Dodgers hat. Anyway, that was just something else. There's all kinds of other celebrities there. Last night, LeBron James was there. I saw Magic Johnson on the highlight. I saw Brad Pitt was there. And it's would imagine because of the way that the schedule works that there's going to be more celebs in the crowd a little bit later tonight. Tonight, Trey Savage and Blake Snell. We've seen this already this series, and of course that was game 1, and Savage came out on top of that. Snell wasn't the best against the Jays the first time around, so maybe that continues. You'll be able to catch it. You watch it on Sportsnet, of course, but you'll be able to listen to it right here just after 9 o'clock, first pitch tonight, and that is on 95.7 News Radio. I'll be listening, and I hope that you are as well. Of course, the Bank of Canada is making a decision today. Interest rates. Most economists expect the central bank will deliver a second consecutive cut of its key interest rate as the economy is showing cracks as they're saying, in the face of these U.S. tariffs. It lowered its policy rate. I think it was a quarter point last time around. We're currently at 2.5%. Bank of Canada is also set to publish updated economic forecasts for the first time since January. So not only will we get a look at what's happening with interest rates, and many of the people that I read and listen to with regards to what's happening with the Bank of Canada are suggesting a quarter point drop. We'll be down to 2.25% at the end of this morning. And what does that mean for your mortgage? What does that mean moving forward? And what is these economic forecasts we can expect to see with the Bank of Canada rate for the short-term future? We're going to cut Dr. John Gillis a little bit short today and welcome in our host of Mortgage 101. That, of course, is Clinton Wilkins. He's going to give us his thoughts on what the Bank of Canada did and what they may do, and he's looking like he is spot on, as the saying goes, with regards to interest rates. He predicted a couple of months ago that we would see 3 in a row, and this would be the second one. So is there a third maybe in the horizon? Is now the right time to pull the trigger on the mortgage? And then we're going to do an open hour after that, and I'm very curious. We're hearing from Real Estate Association across the country, Nova Scotia lagging a little bit behind, but it will catch up. It tends to be the way it works when stuff happens in the country. Nova Scotia eventually gets there, and we're seeing a 5% drop in property values across the country. I'm curious as to your thoughts on the housing market, and if you're planning in the future, not too distant future, on selling your home. We know that the market's changing. We know that the market is softening. Is it time to get out of that mortgage and sell your house and into something new? That's something we're going to ask you when we open up the telephone lines. And, of course, the big story in the Caribbean today is Hurricane Melissa. It's made landfall in Cuba today as a Category 3. People in that area, about 700,000 people, have been evacuated in Cuba, as we'll see winds that are substantial, 50 centimeters of rain. Wow. Melissa forecast across the island through the morning and moving to the Bahamas later today. Canadian Hurricane Center says the storm is forecast to stay well off the Maritimes as it accelerates northward, but will play a role in dumping some ugly weather across eastern Canada. And that's what I described off the top on Friday. We're likely to see some of the moisture from it. The track, I looked at it just before we came on the air, and the only place that may have a brush with that storm, and it's an outside chance, is the Avalon Peninsula in Newfoundland and Labrador. It should pass far enough off of that shore to not be a direct hit, not have some serious impact. But I would imagine we'll kick up some surf and could create some storm surge in that part of the world. So not a lot of reporting happening this morning out of Jamaica. I've seen a few things. I've also seen a lot of fake stuff, which I don't understand. And it to be quite honest, is quite annoying when I'm seeing AI-generated, and I'll say it, crap that is floating around in the social media world when a country, an island, is getting absolutely pounded by a storm, people trying to monetize it and make money off of clicks, off of fake information that's obviously fake. It's obviously clickbait, and those obviously people have really no conscience because it's a terrible situation and they're trying to capitalize on it. Maybe something you want to talk about in the open hour when we come back. We're going to take our first break here on the Midweek Wednesday edition of the program. When we come back, there's been a lot of talk in this province about the Wind East project. That is this pet project of the now energy minister and premier, Tim Houston, and his offshore wind selling power to Canada. Larry Hughes is an engineering professor at Dalhousie University, and he's like, hang on. Let's take a look at this and some timelines that are associated with it. Larry Hughes will be your guest when we return. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. Happy Wednesday. We're back after the break. All right, welcome back. A Wednesday edition of the program, and we've been talking about the province's economy for a long time here in Nova Scotia, right? I'm thinking all the way back to the Ship Starts Here proposal, and then the eventuality of that ship's contract landing, and that was going to change the face of Nova Scotia's economy, and almost to the point where we were starting to think that they were going to pave the streets with gold around here when that contract happened. And I don't doubt that it has had a large impact on the economy here. But it's a long game, right? It's not a short-term fix. These kind of projects, and the next one we're going to talk about fits into that category. These kind of projects take a long time to see any benefit. And the project that I'm talking about, of course, and mentioned earlier today, is Tim Houston's plan to build this massive offshore wind farm and generate enough power to supply our needs here in Nova Scotia for a very, very, very long time, if not forever, and sell that surplus as to the rest of the country and make it an economic cash cow. Our next guest has penned an op-ed that appeared in the Halifax Examiner and has been taking a pretty close look at these big national projects and this particularly this Wind East project that Tim Houston has been touting as being generational, and that is Larry Hughes. Larry, how are you?
Oh, very well, Dan. Yourself?
I'm not too bad. This is if you listen to the Premier, this is going to be the legacy project for decades and generations, and it very well may be, but it's going to be a while before we see any benefit from it, right?
Oh, yes, but you could make the same argument about hydrogen. This would by now would be exporting hydrogen to Europe, and that never materialized or hasn't materialized yet, to be fair. But yes, Wind West is the Premier's latest energy plan to make Nova Scotia what he called an energy superpower.
Right. This is a transform. I think the word was transformational. This kind of a project will be something that will benefit Nova Scotians forever. But you write in your op-ed that this is a project that is going to take decades to get off the ground.
Oh, absolutely. Well, not just off the ground, but once it gets going, it's still going to take time. You're talking 40 to 66 gigawatts of wind, and if you think about it, if you're only putting 2 gigawatts, which is probably reasonable, of offshore wind a year, we're talking 20, 30 years into the future, which is putting us essentially into the latter half of this century.
Lots of work has to happen out there, right, Larry? In order for us to see power generated, there has to obviously be somebody that has to indicate interest in it, and then there's a whole bunch of things that have to happen before we even see a quote unquote shovel in the ground.
Oh, or a paddle in the water,
right.
Or in the water perhaps. But yeah, but the shovel in the ground is quite correct, because there is the onshore infrastructure that we don't have, because you need onshore infrastructure for turbine assembly, because the equipment will probably come in pieces and then shipped out to the site. Those of you that recall from, I think it was about 2022 or 2023 in Halifax Harbor, there were a number of ships that were coming in destined for a wind turbine project just off Martha's Vineyard. And it was bringing monstrous turbine foundations, and they were essentially piles to be driven into the seabed. Excuse me. So that has to be done. We have to have the facilities to dock ships like that, and then other equipment to, once it's assembled, to take it out to the different wind areas where the turbines would be placed. And then the next question is about supply chain.
Right. There's
been huge supply chain issues over the past few years, in part because of what's going on in the United States. And so countries that would be normally trading have had to scale back, and that's probably another issue that is going to have to be addressed. I can go on. I mean, there's a number of issues. Perhaps the two largest are we need more data for the wind data, wave data, and the seafloor, the seabed data. Because if you're going to install a large wind farm, maybe several hundred wind turbines, it's different if you're doing it on land where you can see the topography and so forth. But in this case, you now have to start surveying the seabed and determining whether the turbines' foundations could be placed in that location, because, of course, it's not just like the land, it's not necessarily a smooth surface.
Right.
And there are different types of foundations, if we want to call a floating wind turbine a foundation, but you would have the sort of traditional, almost like a pile-driven into the seabed and the turbine placed on that. And you can also have floating turbines. And you may have seen pictures of offshore Gulf of Mexico, offshore Louisiana, where there are floating oil platforms. And you would have something similar here. The floating structures are easier to move, and the foundation is probably simpler in the respect that essentially anchors holding it in place. But it is far more expensive. And the last, there's all kinds, but I think the last point worth noting is climate change, because we do have Hurricane Melissa coming up not necessarily that close to us, but it's certainly inching towards the west. Its track is moving westward. So you would see places like Sable Island not necessarily getting hurricane winds, but extremely strong winds, potentially close to hurricane speeds. And that's locations where these turbines are to be placed, or the province has opened up for placing turbines.
It's interesting, we've been very lucky this year with the track of these storms, but if you go back and look at 2025, we saw a lot of storms that passed, not necessarily over, but pretty close to that Scotian shelf, and that's where these things are going to live. And, obviously they have the same kind of issues with floating stuff in the Gulf of Mexico dealing with storms, but we have North Atlantic weather, right? We have nor'easters all the time. We have these massive waves. We have these big tides, and that's all going to play a factor into it.
Oh, absolutely. And this is an interesting point that isn't really discussed. The assumption is, we want this 40, 60 odd gigawatts of wind turbines offshore, fine. But remember, the lifetime of these is, say, 20 to 30 years. And in extreme weather events, you're going to have more wear and tear on the turbines. So not only will you be installing new turbines, you'll also be replacing those that already exist. So it's not as if, we're going to put them all in. It's going to be a case of, yes, we're putting them in, but also replacing those that have been damaged. So it's not just a simple matter of saying, over the next 20, 30 years or so, we'll be putting turbines out. It's far more complex than that.
Larry, crystal ball time. If we get a release today says XYZ company has agreed to build these turbines and we've granted them approval and work starts tomorrow, how long do you think it will take before we see the first gigawatt of electricity? Yeah,
the first power. As I said earlier, you would have to survey the site. The province has chosen a number of has laid out a number of areas that can be developed. There's Sydney, offshore Sydney, and so forth, and then on what we would consider the Scotian Shelf proper, essentially from the eastern shore out to Sable Island. There are three other areas there. The province has stipulated what type of equipment can be placed there. One company called DP Energy is looking at or wants to put floating turbines. They've had experience offshore Ireland. They want to put floating turbines in the French Bank, which is actually would need floating turbines simply because of the depth. And it's essentially, it's on the horizon, but it is within sight of Guysborough, with a probable landing site for these for the power connection cable. But there's all kinds of issues, as we said. These things have to be assembled probably on shore. So that being the case, that has to be built. The hope is by 2030. By 2033, I should say, there will be 5 gigawatts installed offshore.
Long time to go. Larry, appreciate your time.
Oh, always my pleasure.
That is Larry Hughes. He is an engineering professor down there at Dalhousie University. Many, many years before we see any kind of electricity from this project that the Premier has billed is generational. Going to stop, take a break, get an update on the news. On the other side of it, we've talked about retail crime a number of times on the program today, but now the Retail Council of Canada says it's a full-blown crisis. Jim Cormier, director of the Retail Council of Canada, will be our guest. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. I hear stories from y'all, and I do appreciate the emails. I read every one of them, talking about some of the things that you've witnessed as either a store owner or as a store worker or somebody that is just shopping in a store and seeing these things firsthand. It has become very prevalent in HRM, and it will be fair to say not just here. I'm hearing stories from back home in Ontario where this is happening a lot, and in places out west where retail crime has become very rampant in today's society. It's something that is happening far more than it ever used to the point now where an advocacy group is saying that it is a full-blown crisis, and we're very pleased to welcome to the program the director of the Retail Council of Canada. That's Jim Cormier. Jim, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
I can tell you firsthand, having seen this with my own two eyes, where somebody literally walks into a store, fills a shopping cart, waves at the person at the checkout, and walks out the door. It's happening all over the country.
Yes, yeah, for sure. It's unfortunate that I have to continue coming back, raising the alarm. Luckily, folks like you guys with the media outlets have been covering this because it seems like, I know it's frustration, but on my part, but it seems like at times that the media seems to be the only ones that care about this. It's been really difficult to try and get governments at any level to act. And so while we're waiting for, meaningful steps to be taken at all levels, we have small independent retailers, mid-sized, even the largest ones in the world, getting ripped off seemingly on a daily basis. And again, to the point that we always make with you guys, we're not talking about regular shoplifting. There's policies that are in place that have been in place for years that each individual retailer has to deal with the kid that steals a chocolate bar or the single mother that steals a loaf of bread to feed her family. We're talking about organized retail crime, coming in groups, knowing exactly what they're going after, threatening and at times even assaulting retail staff. And then, as you said, just waltzing out the door because they know that there are little to no consequences for it. Police resources are completely stretched. They want to help more, but they can't. The justice system is completely overwhelmed. So we have judges and others just, cutting people loose saying, well, promise you won't do it again. And of course, that individual is right back in the retail store the very next day. It's an absolute vicious circle. And we're at a point where our members are like, we don't know what else to do.
Right. And there's two things that come to mind when I think about this. One is the cost, right? When somebody steals something from the store has to recoup that cost somehow, and that is leading to some of the increases in price that we've seen. And the other thing that I think of is worker safety, right? We are all entitled to work in a safe workplace environment, and having somebody that threatens you when they're walking out the door with a shopping cart full of goods is not a safe work environment.
Exactly. And and that's some of the points that we continue to make as well, because we get it. There are it's a huge there are lots of different retailers out there, and some elements of society in Halifax and across your listening area may support small independent business, but they don't think much of large, big box retail. That's fine. That's their opinion. But my point is that when they come out and make public statements sometimes even elected officials, that, well, it's not that big of a deal if it's people stealing from a large retailer because it's just a property crime. It's not just a property crime. There are workers that work there that should have the right to be able to go to work and go home safely at the end of their shift, not be intimidated. Not to mention, what does it do to community? If you're finding in a retail area that, good, honest people don't want to go there anymore because they know that they're going to be subjected to watching, brazen theft happening and intimidation happening, they're that much less likely to frequent those neighborhoods and go to those stores where they can just sit at home and they can shop online. And we know very well that that doesn't really benefit the local communities. It doesn't benefit the bricks and mortar retailers that are paying taxes, employing people in your community, donating to different causes in your community. So we ask people to understand that when we're raising the alarm, it's whatever your opinion is on independent retail, mid-sized or large, there are workers involved in this as well.
Jim, is this going to force business owners to change the way that we do business, the traditional method of a customer coming into a store and wandering through it and picking off things off the shelf and then putting it into a cart and then going to the checkout and paying for it and going out the door with the way that this theft is here, it's prevalent, and I would imagine it's growing. Are we going to get to a model where we're going to have to put an order in and pick things up through glass?
Well, regrettably, you're already seeing it in a smaller scale. There are retailers now in Halifax that at certain times of the day, you have to buzz in. You can't just walk into the store. You have to ring a buzzer, hope that they let you in. Of course, they will. But point being is you're seeing that. You're seeing police officers. And again, we're not saying this as a criticism of them. They are so overstretched themselves that at times when they come in and they're trying to help retailers, some of their suggestions are, well, you should take the best-selling products that you have and hide them. Put them behind a counter. Put them way in the back of the store where people can't get to them. That's how crazy this has become, that if you're an independent retailer and your profit margins are thin, and you're being told that because the police can't come or that the justice system won't deal with these repeat violent offenders, that the onus is now on you to not try and sell product. That's how bizarre this has become now. And you have retailers sitting there thinking, that's the solution? You're telling me to try and not sell the products that help me turn a profit and keep employing people, keep putting food on my table. It's really become that level of bizarre behavior that seems to be the solution. We need beat cops on the ground. We need more police officers in the city, out in rural Nova Scotia as well. We need action for that so that at least there's a visual deterrent when these prolific repeat offenders are waltzing in and out of stores on Spring Garden Road or in downtown, that they actually see police officers. And again, we're not taking that as a shot against the cops. We understand that they are trying to do their best. They've increased recruitment at Halifax Regional Police. Great. But they're going to have to do that for so many more years just to get up to a level of staffing where they can start doing that sort of work. We need help, and we need the city to step up. We need the province to step up. We heard an announcement from Mark Carney a little over a week and a half ago. That's a promise, but let's see if they actually put it into action. We need help with bail reform so there's no more catch and release.
And that was my next question, Jim. The criminal element out there that these organized groups that are purveying this crime know that for the most part the store staff have been told and can even lose their job if they engage with these people, right?
Exactly. And that's an individual retailer's policy, but it makes sense. Should you be expected as a retail employee to go and tackle somebody and then potentially, get beaten up while you're on the job?
Or worse.
Of course not. Or worse. And so that's where, it didn't take long for the organized retail criminal element to understand that the retailers are worried about their employees. So they're putting in policies to say, do not engage. So that's why they don't even run anymore. They waltz in, they waltz out. So if you call the police, maybe they come right away. Maybe they don't come until 6 hours later. And then if they do get arrested, the justice system is just letting them go. Catch and release. And it just keeps making the problem worse. Add to it the social side to it as well. These organized criminals, sometimes they do the dirty work themselves. Other times they come in and they give $20 to the local homeless person, the drug addict, and say, here's some money, here's a list, I want you to go in and steal these products. So if they get caught, you're not catching the people that are the actual perpetrators. You're catching somebody that's, dealing with a lot of different social issues. That there's a lack of funding there too, but that's a whole other different story. That could take a generation or more to try and fix, and hopefully government acts there too. But we can't wait 30 years or more for those types of social problems to be fixed. We have members that are losing money week in and week out and having a hard time hiring staff because it's, gosh, if I work there, am I going to get beat up or spit on or have to be verbally harassed every day by these organized elements that are in and out and then selling the product in a parking lot 2 hours later?
Jim, I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
That's Jim Cormier from the Retail Council of Canada. It's everywhere, folks. I've seen it. Firsthand, I've seen it. And there's very little deterrent out there. Might be something you want to talk about in the open hour when we do that at noon today. Don't forget, at 11 o'clock, Dr. John Gillis will be here for house calls. When we come back, the company behind the Cabot Links and Cliffs golf courses is taking now what is being described as a third swing at a potential development that would include part of West Mabou Beach Provincial Park. That, of course, protected by law and has been previously deemed out of bounds for these proposals. After the break, a conversation with Kate Beaton. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. As I mentioned in the preamble, there looks like there's an attempt to build a golf course up in Cape Breton that would involve parts of a provincial park in that part of the world, something that I thought was done with after the last time that we went through this, and the government, I think, committed to not doing it anymore, but apparently the winds of change may be upon us, and Cabot Links and the Cliff golf courses and the people behind them are now apparently making another attempt to build a course up there. We're very pleased to welcome to the program today somebody that lives up there. That's Kate Beaton. Kate, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks.
Were you like me, Kate, when we went through this last time and it was finally shut down, that we thought, all right, we're done with this now, let's move on?
I mean, in 2023, we thought that, but certainly rumors have been going around here in recent months that there is action. And when those rumors proved to be true from the CBC article on October 3rd, then the alarms really went off.
Tell me a little bit about what you think this proposal involves. Where is it and how large is it and how much of the park would it involve?
It is an attempt, a third attempt, as you say, by Cabot, the golf company, to acquire land for a golf course in West Mabou Beach Provincial Park, and it would be maybe a third of the park. And it's a natural environment park, and there aren't that many in Nova Scotia. It's the only one in Inverness County, so they would be building a golf course on top of sand dunes. And giving us lots of lines about environmental stewardship and everything, but I really don't think that you can say that you are doing environmental stewardship when you are literally putting a golf course on top of protected land.
It doesn't make any sense to me that we protect land and make it a public space in a provincial park, and then we allow private development on it.
Exactly. And this land was expropriated in 1983 from private citizens here to make this park, to protect the land. And I've said this before, but, it looks attractive to them because it's sitting there pristine, it's beautiful, and a company like Cabot can come in and say, God, this looks great for me. It'd be perfect for my golf course. And they've got money. They can sweeten the pot for the government. And yet this piece of land, West Mabou Beach Provincial Park, is beautiful and pristine and looks great to them because it has been protected, because it has been set aside and fought for. And I find it deeply unfair that every time somebody sets their eyes on it to develop it. The same people have to come out and fight it. It shouldn't be our job as citizens, as a community, to have to fight against billionaires who are too cheap to buy their own land. You know, in Mabou, there is support for a golf course. People would welcome a golf course, but not on public land. These are again, billionaires who head offices are in Toronto and in the United States, and they're making the case that I guess they cannot buy enough private land to make a golf course happen, and that have to be the first billionaires who couldn't do that.
And golf courses might look pretty and you know, provide a service to people. There's no doubt about it, but they also come with some environmental risks too, right? There's different kinds of pesticides and things that they use to keep them green and all of that stuff.
Yes, and again, Cabot makes great claims about environmental stewardship, but you are going to have pesticides. You're going to have things go into the environment. I read a study not long ago that shows that there are health risks for people around golf courses. There are higher instances of Parkinson's disease for people who within a certain radius of golf courses. These are all things that are going to be swept under the rug, under this like mantle of economic opportunity that's going to be so great for us.
How much communication have residents received on this new proposal, Kate?
From who? Nobody. We're a small community. We're very interconnected. We do hear things, and like I said, when we heard rumors that this was going to happen and they turn out to be true, you put more stock in the things that you hear from conversations with people. But if you try to bring those concerns to your local government, they'll say that you're jumping to conclusions or you're imagining a worst case scenario. Well, we have not received any communication from Cabot or the government. And in fact, yesterday they had a vote where the Department of Natural Resources and Economic Development tabled a proposal by Ian Rankin. He said, can we please vote to ensure protections on our public land, especially our coastal land, and most especially West Mabou, which is a point of contention right now. And the Conservative government voted that down. They said, no, we're going to keep things open to development for what's best for Nova Scotia. But you have this this willingness to entertain the idea of development on one hand, while also not talking to the citizens about what is actually happening. And we know that there are things happening. It's very insulting.
Kate, what's the next steps now? Obviously, trying to get more information out of the province be very difficult.
That would be ideal.
Right.
Yes, and well, I mean, Tim Houston has that whole mandate: take the no out of Nova Scotia. But what that seems to be is do not let people decide for themselves. The government will decide what's best for us, and this is our land. This is public land. We should be able to have a say. What's next, I think, is and this is not just us. If they're able to do this in Mabou, then all public land around Nova Scotia is up for grabs. The precedent will be set. So this is not just important to us, but to the province as a whole, because there's talks about blasting through the usual checks and balances so that we can do fracking and uranium mining and all these things that we're all going to benefit from, no matter what people think or say, as though we cannot speak for ourselves. So the next step is for us to be very loud and to be heard and not let things happen without our involvement.
Kate, I appreciate it. Keep us in the loop, will you?
Listen, I'm here anytime. You give a call.
All right, Kate, I appreciate it.
All right.
That's Kate Beaton, resident up there in West Mabou, where we're talking about a golf course again being placed in a provincial park. And as I mentioned earlier, I get it. There are people that would this thing would service, right? But it's a provincial park, for crying out loud. If there was a groundswell to build a golf course within the boundaries of the provincial park from the people that are there, that's a different story. But this is not the first, not the second. This is the third go around now. And with a change in the Natural Resources Department at the top, with the minister changing hands, and this business with the committee yesterday, where the Liberals brought forth a piece of legislation, or at least a motion to try and get some clarity on this. They got voted down. We, by the way, are going to have Ian Rankin on the program tomorrow to talk about that, and of course some of the other goings on at Province House. So I hope that you can join us for that. Very quickly before we go to the break, folks, I was during the news there at 10:30. I jumped onto a ticket site for Game 6 at the Rogers Centre. And just out of curiosity more than anything else. And the very cheapest seat. Now, the general admission tickets, those are the ones where those common areas, you know what I'm talking about, where you don't get a seat and you kind of just stand for the game. Those are $1,600. And the very cheapest ticket that I could find for a single seat at Rogers Centre for Game 6 of the World Series, $1,949. Wow. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Digging out that $2,000 to be able to go and see a Game 6. Can you imagine just using Haligonian as an example? Be, if you're lucky, $600-700 to fly to Toronto. If you're lucky, and I haven't looked at hotel prices, but they're probably $300 or $400 a night, and then $2,000 for a ticket, and then dinner on top of that, maybe after the game or during the game if you're going to eat hot dogs like Simon Bennett does. I get this whole, what's the word I'm looking for? Once in a lifetime opportunity. Never going to see this again. Been waiting for the Blue Jays to get to the World Series for all of my lifetime. For those of you that weren't around in '92 and '93, but that is a lot of dollars to go watch a baseball game. I know some of you are doing it. I've had friends that were at Game 2 that did it. I have colleagues that work in Toronto that have tickets for had tickets for Game 1 and Game 6, going to Game 6 on Friday night. It's a lot of money, right? All right, it's time for house calls. If you have a medical-related question, if you have something you'd like Dr. John Gillis to give you an opinion on, here's an opportunity. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. And just a quick note, folks, the last couple of weeks that we've been doing this, everybody's been kind of sitting on the sidelines and waiting to join the conversation and wait till the very end to call in and to try and get on with just minutes to go, and we have to disappoint people. So my advice to you is, if you want to join the program, if you have a question about something that's going on in your health world, call early. That way you'll avoid disappointment. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Please welcome to the show the aforementioned Dr. John Gillis. Dr. John, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Going to Game 6?
No, I'm going to be in Chicago, so I'll be watching it from somewhere there, from an ICE detention center, maybe. Who knows?
Did you watch the marathon on Monday night?
Couldn't do it. I'd been away, and I fell asleep. I actually woke up because my dog was barking at something, and I'm like, I'll check the score at 3 a.m., and it was still rolling.
I made it to the 12th. I listened to it on the radio, and I made the mistake of putting the headphones on and laying down in bed to listen to the end of the game, and I got as far as the 12th, and that was the end of her.
Yeah, some people stayed in, but it was interesting how it worked out. I mean, a lot of people gave them up for dead after they lost that one, but I think it finished Ohtani. He just wasn't himself last night. He pitched poorly and he struck out a lot.
He did.
So it sort of balanced itself out.
Your thoughts on tonight's game? Can they have a 3-2 going home?
Hope so. Who knows? I mean, it's been interesting. So it'll be. I got to work tonight. I'll be watching if I can, but doubt I'll get to see much.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, we'll start by asking you how things are in the ER. Obviously, it's busy, but the virus season is upon us. We did a bit with the Pharmacy Association yesterday talking about vaccinations and stuff. What are you seeing from your end of things? Are people still showing up with these kind of respiratory ailments?
Yeah, it's just everything's busy. I was there yesterday, and it was just nonstop, and we remain bed blocked. I mean, get immune to it. What's supposed to be the majors area of the department, which has 16 or 18 beds. 14 of 18 were filled with admitted patients. So we're seeing all the major stuff in the minors area, in hallways, and you get used to it, but it's just not the best way to do business. But people are still waiting fair bits of time for certain things. Yesterday wasn't I wouldn't say it was a virus heavy day. Some stuff, but it comes and goes, and as we get more into the season, it's going to get worse.
Must be exhausting for you and the rest of the staff there to be dealing with this every day. It wears on the patients, and spelled both ways, patients and patients. And as people get tired and get frustrated, processes fall apart. Things don't happen quickly. Things slow down, and it can happen at any different part. It can be the physician, the nursing staff can get overwhelmed by all the admissions and everything else. Yesterday, the worst part of yesterday, the amount of imaging we were waiting for was crazy. Ultrasounds and CT scans, just the nature of what we were working up, and the poor radiologist was just run off his feet, doing the best he could, but just the amount of scans. But what happens there, if I'm waiting on a scan, that bed is full, and we end up when there's 2 scans to read, it's quick. When there's 15, it really backs up. So there's all sorts of choke points that can happen, and yesterday that was the choke point. It's for me. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, let's go right to the phones and welcome Penny to the show. Penny, how are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
Good. Your question for Dr. Gillis, please.
My question is, I had carpal tunnel surgery on the 15th of October. The surgeon told me to take the sutures out myself, so I did. And I see that there may be a little piece or two still in there that I can't get to. And I'm wondering if I should be concerned about that, or will they work their way out, or what will happen?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of depends where they are, how deep they are. If you cut them and it's still a dead, a piece that's just lying there, or if it's still attached. Were they absorbable sutures, or were they obviously they were meant to be cut out, so they probably weren't. So, I mean, the short answer is, if it's a little piece, it'll most likely work itself out. If it's getting inflamed or you're concerned about it, have someone look at it. But, I mean, really what you need is just a fine forceps to try and pull it out if you can. So, happens to the best of us. Sometimes we take stitches out and you think you got everything, and someone will come back and they'll say, well, what about this one? I go, well, didn't see that one, or it was buried and now it's popped. It happens. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, but just watch for any redness or pus or anything like that, and just try to work them out if you can.
Best of luck, Penny. Appreciate the call. Dr. John, is that normal to have people cut their own stitches out?
No, I wouldn't say so.
That's the first I'd heard of that. Anyway.
Yeah, somebody with some experience in the field.
Maybe, likely. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take our first break. Dr. John's going to stick around after it and answer your medical-related questions. This is House Calls. Looking forward to your calls. We're back after the break. All right, welcome back. This is House Calls. He's Dr. John Gillis, here to answer your medical-related questions. Should you have one, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. I will tell you, folks, there's lots of open lines. If you want to get into the conversation, great opportunity to do so right now. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, I know we talked about ibuprofen a couple of weeks ago on the program. I got an email from a listener just before the show started today, and it says, hey, Doc John, is it safe for me to take a high dosage of ibuprofen for about 3 days? The writer says, I pinched a nerve in my lower back, and when this happens, it usually takes a few days for it to heal. What safe but high dosage I could take to reduce inflammation for a couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, that depends on how big somebody is. And it depends if they have kidney or stomach problems. 600 milligrams 4 times a day is typically safe, but I mean, if you're 110 pounds, that might be a little much. So you can check the dosing, online, but typically that's a safe benchmark for a few days if you don't have stomach or kidney problems.
Isn't an extra strength like Advil, like the big ones? Those are 600s, aren't they?
Yeah, and most of them are 4s. Most of what you see in
Right.
the community are 2s and 4s. There's a few that you can get 6s. We have them in the hospital. I don't know if you can buy them at the drugstore.
So 6 every 4 hours is kind of the benchmark, right?
Yeah, you can go. Some people go higher in bigger patients, but you want to be careful with the risks of kidney and stomach and that sort of thing.
And you wouldn't want to do that for an extended period of time, correct?
Correct.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To the phones, we welcome Joe to the show. Joe, how are you?
Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Good. How are you? Your question for Dr. Gillis, please.
Yeah, hey, Dr. Gillis, thanks for taking this. I've been experiencing vision loss. I wear 3.5s to read anything. I just buy them at the dollar store. But I'm getting night blindness, I guess. I was driving last night, and every car that passed, I was just I was blinded by the headlights kind of thing. And I've never experienced that before, but it'll bring tears to my eyes at some points. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that I can do to address that. I've been to the eye clinic, and they're there's nothing we can do for you, kind of thing. I don't want to say that, but yeah, I mean, just I'd like to be able to figure that out. If there's anything that I can take that might kind of clear that up, or at least alleviate a little bit of the problem.
Well, I mean, it seems odd that when were you seen at the eye clinic? If you weren't plus.
It was last year. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you probably need to get checked again. I mean, it may be that your prescription is worsened, so that you're, if you're wearing plus 3.5 to read, you probably have at least a +1 for your everyday, which means your eyes are struggling, to see distance, even though you may not be aware of it. But this could be a lot of things. It could be an emergent cataract. It could be changes in eye pressure. It could be diabetes. It's a lot of different things that it could be. There are a few vitamin deficiencies, but if it's getting worse and you haven't been seen in a year, you really need someone to examine you, record your vision, probably dilate you, and take a look at the back of your eye to see if just because last year they didn't see anything doesn't mean they won't this year.
Thanks for the call, Joe. Appreciate it. Best of luck, sir. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Eye appointments, it's every year, right? You get checked. Is that the rule of thumb?
I think 1 to 2 years, depending on age and what you have going on. Diabetics should get checked frequently. If you're young, healthy, and have no problems, every 2 years is probably reasonable. But a lot of people forget it, and it's important by itself, but it can also, can be the window to diagnosing other conditions as well.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That's the phone number. Lines are almost wide open if you want to get in here and get your medical question answered. Dr. John, another email question comes to us. It says, hey, Dr. John, I'm a terrible sleeper. I can only really fall asleep on my stomach or my side. Because of how I sleep, I'm propped up on one shoulder. Most of the time I wake up during the night and either my whole arm's numb to the shoulder or I'm curled up around a hand that's completely numb. Am I causing damage by putting my arm to sleep so regularly? How do I change how I sleep when I move a lot and I only can fall asleep on my side?
Yeah, I mean, most of that is positional. That happens to me if I sleep on my left side and torque my neck from no injury. I might wake up with a numb hand. I don't think it's dangerous, but it's annoying and it can be painful. So the best thing for that is finding a good neck pillow that keeps your head from torquing over, to either side, keeps it aligned, and that will prevent, turn the spine from tightening up on those narrow ports where the nerves come out. And like I said, usually it's benign. If it's getting worse or it's causing significant pain, it's worth getting checked. But most times it's just positional. And
it's annoying, right? You wake up with those tingles.
Yeah, I mean, your arms feels like it's dead, and not necessarily a ton of fun.
Right. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To the phones, we welcome Norman to the show. Norman, how are you?
Good, thank you very much. Take my call.
Your question,
Hello?
please. Yeah, go ahead. Your question for Dr. Gillis.
It's excuse me. It's my blood pressure. Now, I have a family doctor, and he monitors me quite often. And I was to see him about approximately a month ago, and he increased my blood pressure bills, and I've been taking my blood pressure myself, and I find that it went up. It was around 130, but now since a month it's about 150. And I bought a new machine because I thought the old one was faulty. But I was just wondering now, I gave up beer, and I'm watching what I eat. And how long would it take for my blood pressure to go back down?
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, for people that it's diet dependent, people who eat a lot of salt, if you stop eating salt, stop drinking coffee, stop watching Blue Jays till the middle of the night, or watching Stollart's playing nets ever, then your pressure may go down fairly quickly. If it's genetic, the way you're wired, it may go down slowly or not at all. If the diet and exercise pieces are not relevant. In general, they do make a difference, but it's hard to predict how quickly they will go down. I would just keep an eye on it. Check every couple days, but I see people who are obsessive about it. They're checking it 12 times a day, and it's no wonder it doesn't go down because they're all wound up about it.
Yeah, well, what I do, I take it when I first get up in the morning, and then it starts off at about 160, and if I sit there, it'll go down to about 145, and I suppose if I sat there long enough, it would likely maybe go down further. But I didn't realize coffee had anything to do with it.
Yeah, caffeine, is a stimulant, can drive your blood pressure up. Absolutely.
Best of luck, Norman. Appreciate the call. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, a bit of a weird question here. This one comes from me. I have a recliner chair when I'm sitting and watching the Blue Jays for 18 innings. And as of late, I've been noticing every once in a while that when I have my feet elevated in the recline position, I'll call it, I start to get, and the best way I can describe it is kind of restless legs. And I have to get out of the chair and go for a walk, and then I usually lay down on the couch after that. Is that because my feet are higher than my heart, or is that just something that we can call it reclineritis?
No, I mean it may be a blood flow thing. If your feet are up, but you're getting a bit less circulation. It may be the way your feet are on the recliner, that the nerves in the back of your legs are being pressed on a little bit and causing them to be irritated. Could be either. As long as it's going away fairly quickly, I wouldn't worry too much.
I've heard of restless leg syndrome. Is that a thing?
Oh, very much so. I mean, it can be very debilitating, and it's hard for people to understand what do you mean your legs jump? But it's a problem for a lot of people as they age, and medications can help. Hydration helps. Maintaining blood flow helps, but it can be a difficult condition to treat, and people just say they can't sit still because their legs won't stop jumping, and it can be debilitating if you're trying to sleep.
No doubt. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John's going to stick around here. We're going to take a break for the news. On the other side of it, we're going to continue with house calls. If you have a medical-related question, your opportunity to get it answered very quickly. Before we go to the break, I just received word that the Bank of Canada has cut its interest rate. We were talking about this earlier in the show today. It dropped at a quarter point. The central bank's key rate now at 2.25%. A reminder that we're going to cut Dr. John Gillis a little bit loose a little bit early today so that we can bring our mortgage expert, our mortgage guru, well, maybe he is a doctor, Clinton Wilkins will be joining us around 11:50 today to take a look at that bank rate. So if you have a medical call, best to get it in. The segment's going to be a little bit shorter so that we can bring that the latest on the interest rates to you. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. This is House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis, here to answer your medical questions. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Greg to the program. Greg, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself, gentlemen?
Good. Your question for Dr. Gillis, please.
Yes, I've been having a lot of hip pain for the last 5 years, and I've had x-rays and MRIs and CT scans done, and I've been told that my hips aren't bad enough, like my osteoarthritis isn't bad enough to warrant a hip replacement. And I also, both my gluteus medius tendons are completely torn away. Now, yesterday I was told that they don't believe that reattaching my tendons would alleviate the pain that I am having, and they suggested that maybe it's coming from a back problem. Now, I'm just wondering should I be concerned that these tendons are just going to be loose and flying around, or should I maybe pursue it further and get them reattached?
Yeah, how was that diagnosed?
It was diagnosed just by MRIs.
Yeah, I mean, I must say that's not something you hear very often. It does happen. I would tend to trust the professional who looked at you. If you saw a surgeon that told you that he or she doesn't think that it's going to make any difference, then I wouldn't see a particular reason to disagree with that. I mean, again, I work in chronic pain. I don't see people. I don't know if I've ever heard of that being done. I can't think of a time when I've heard of that being done or that being a primary cause of something. Now, anything can happen, but I would tend to defer to the person who not only saw your imaging but examined you. And you mentioned a back problem. If that's if that's a possibility, then you may want to pursue some back imaging and see if there's something that's causing the pain. But what I say to people all the time is I see people spending all the time chasing tests and surgeries instead of doing things to get their pain under control, which maybe physio, massage, acupuncture, chiro, maybe activity, maybe medications, maybe injections. Focus on the function and not always chasing the waterfall of tests or surgery. That's sort of my general approach to. And you may have been doing all those things, but that's kind of where my head goes.
Thanks, Greg. Best of luck. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Marilyn to the show. Marilyn, how are you?
Oh, not too bad, thank you. I have a question for Dr. Gillis. I'd like to know how safe it is to have the RSV immunization. I saw on, Dr. Google, that it could cause GBS, and I can't pronounce that, Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Guillain-Barré syndrome.
GBS.
Where did you read that?
Sorry?
Where did you read that? Did you read
it on Dr. Google?
She Googled it, Dr.
Where?
On my smartphone.
Okay. That's not what I'm asking, though. Dr. Google can be fine. If you're reading something on the New England Journal of Medicine site, then that's one thing. If you're reading it on the Center for Disease Control site, that's one thing. If you're reading it on a Reddit sub-blog from some dude who lives in his basement who's a conspiracy theorist, that's something else. They do describe a very small risk of Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is basically when your body sort of attacks itself and and can cause nerve damage and, in severe cases, paralysis. But it's extremely rare in all comers. I mean, I think I've seen maybe 2 cases in 25 plus years. So this, they'll describe this if it's happened to anybody that's had this vaccine, even if they're not sure that it was the cause. They have mentioned it as a possible risk, but they say, here, I'll see if I can find the number, 7 per million. So that's very low. So does that mean it's impossible? I drive home from work every day, and, some people can't drive, and maybe I'm not a great driver either. Something could happen to me every time you walk down the street, do just about anything. But 7 in a million is pretty low, but it's responsible to report these things so they can be tracked. So if it were me, I wouldn't worry about it, but it's not impossible, I guess is how I would phrase it.
Thanks for the call, Marilyn. Appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, RSV shots not available for everyone, or are they?
Oh, they're available for everybody. They're not. I don't think they're recommended until you're at least over 50, and they're not covered, for. I think in this province it's covered over 75 right now. I think the recommendation is over 60, but you can get it if you're over 50, and it's covered in, for people over 75, I think, in Nova Scotia.
And this is obviously with young children too. That happens at the hospital level, correct?
Say that again, sorry.
The RSV is with young kids, with newborns. That is handled when they're going through their procedures.
Yeah,
at the hospital.
Absolutely. So I mean, this has been getting overlooked a bit of late because RSV didn't used to show up in adults really at all. It is done for kids because it can be really debilitating in kids, and is covered for kids. And you're right, it's done as part of the routine immunizations of infancy.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's see if we can get one more call in here before we have to say goodbye to Dr. John, and that's Mike. Mike, how are you?
Good. Dr. John, I'm a senior, and I have neuropathy in my feet, and it's only developed over the last year or so, and it hasn't got any worse. It hasn't got any better. I don't know why I have it, and then they say I have a circulation in my toes, but I don't know what caused it and if it's going to get worse or not. It's just a stiffness in the balls of my feet.
Yeah. Did you say you're diabetic?
No.
Okay. And how were you diagnosed with neuropathy? Did you like a nerve conduction test?
No. I went to my GP, and he doesn't think it's a bad thing, but I was just wondering. It's just weird, it came out of nowhere, and I don't know, is it something I ate or something I'm not doing, or I'm getting older.
Yeah. Typically, the most common cause of neuropathy is diabetes, and there's some other medical conditions which I assume would have taught.
Definitely not diabetic. I was tested for that first thing.
Some people get nerve damage, just because it's the way they're wired. The best way to minimize it and prevent it is, to stay fit, keep active, keep your weight down. But it's, to your point, I don't think it was something you ate. But again, making sure you have the right diagnosis. I mean, neuropathy is typically burning and tingling, not sort of a stiffness or an ache, although everybody describes pain differently. So you want to make sure that, this is in fact neuropathy. And you said you had a nerve conduction test that confirmed it?
Yeah, but it's got to get worse. My whole foot's like I don't be able to walk.
Yeah, no, it's very hard to predict. And again, the principles are to try and identify any correctable cause, which I assume your family doctor's working on. Keep active, keep fit, proper footwear, and so you don't damage it if you can't feel it. That's a common problem in diabetics. They get cuts and ulcers, and that's because they can't feel their feet. And, look at options to treat the discomfort of the nerve pain. So those are my suggestions. Hope it helps.
Appreciate the call, Mike. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Just a couple minutes left here, Dr. John. And an email question came to us from Chris. It says, Dr. John, I had an MRI done on October the 10th, and still haven't heard from my doctor on my results. How long does it take to get my report to my doctor's office?
It takes a few days to a week typically. There are some exceptions. If there's nothing wrong, not all offices, everybody has a different process. If there's nothing obviously wrong, they may not call you. Their process may be to expect you to make an appointment and discuss it with them. I get a lot of normal testing all the time. We don't, it depends what we're dealing with, but we don't routinely call people, tell them about normal testing. But again, every office has a different process where they expect people to come in, to discuss things that are, thought to be normal, and that anything urgent would get a call. But anything, again, if you haven't heard, I tend to assume that there was nothing of great concern there. But it's always best to follow up, and if that means making an appointment, then probably time to do so.
Do we have access to our stuff now? Would that come in the same place, or would an MRI go to your doctor?
Yeah, a lot of stuff is coming in now. I think I've seen X-ray reports. I actually don't know if MRI reports are going into the NS Health record yet. If anyone has that answer, maybe they could enlighten us, but I just don't know.
Fair enough. Dr. John, we're going to cut you loose. Have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Have a great day.
That is Dr. John Gillis here every Wednesday to answer your medical-related questions. We're going to stop down. I know we normally go to the top of the hour, but the Bank of Canada has made a decision on its interest rates, dropping them yet another quarter point. 2.25% is the key overnight rate. Now, what does that mean for your mortgage? What does that mean for the housing market? What does that mean moving forward? And can we expect any more? When we start talking about mortgages and finance, we go to our mortgage and finance guru, and that is Clinton Wilkins from Mortgage 101. He will be your guest when we return. You are listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Mortgage 101 goes this weekend, and it is financial. Well, it's not today, not Financial Literacy Month. November is Financial Literacy Month, and we will be focusing on that. At least our next guest will be focusing on that when we listen to him on the weekend, and that, of course, is Mortgage 101's very own, our mortgage guru, as we call him. And I can call you that now, Clinton, because 2 months ago, I think you said, when the last time you and I did a show together, you said that the bank rates were going to go down 3 times, and so far you've been bang on.
Bang on, bang on. So let's see if my prediction continues to hold.
Right.
I mean, again, this is just what I know today. And the situation could be very different tomorrow. Just look at this whole Doug Ford, Trump commercial situation. Things can literally change overnight.
Right.
But I'm taking the information. We're reading. I'll call myself a barstool economist. And I'm so lucky to be here with our listeners and sharing that information. Last week I was in Ottawa for the National Mortgage Conference. I sit on a board for Mortgage Professionals Canada, so I'm able to represent the mortgage industry and really the interests of Canadians from Atlantic Canada on this board, which is awesome. And they had Benjamin Tall, the chief economist from CIBC. And one of the things that he said, there's a couple things that I really took home, but he said, no one's talking about the R word. The R word's a bad word. I guess it doesn't matter what R word you're thinking of, but the R word that he was referring to was recession. And that we're actually in a recession, even though no one's talking about it, but we are actually living it right now.
Well, the technical term is a decline in GDP over 2 quarters, and we've seen that, right?
We are in a classic recession, and and that brings its other concerns. When we're talking about job numbers, and when we're talking about inflation. The other thing is it's challenging to be in a recession when the inflation is also increasing a little bit. Some of these numbers are artificially maybe propped up or pushed down by some of the things like the carbon tax. But I think going into the new year, it's going to be really important that we keep that inflation low and just focus on what's going on here at home. There's so much noise, in the media in general around what's going on in the U.S. Yes, we are very, tightly tied to what's going on. But one of the other things that he said, and, the listeners might enjoy this one, He said that Trump is the Ozempic of the U.S. economy. So that's the one thing that he's done. He's shrunk their economy and essentially put them into recession. Yes, there are impacts in Canada. And I never thought we'd talk about the U.S. politics so much, but there's such a direct impact on what's going on here at home as well.
Particularly with tariffs and with the economy. Tiff Macklin just speaking, in fact, he's speaking right now, saying that the tariffs, the U.S. tariff regime is having an impact on the Canadian economy. Therefore, inflation goes, and then because of that, the Bank of Canada has to react and lower interest rates by another quarter point. So we're at 2.25 now. Clinton, what does that mean for my variable mortgage?
So the bank prime rate, by and large, is going to be 4.45 now. And that may be impacted today. Some lenders won't impact that until the first of the month. Luckily, the first of the month is just right around the corner. So if you're in a variable rate mortgage product and you have an adjustable payment, your payment is actually going to go down, which is awesome. That's going to give you more cash flow in your household. If you have the type of variable rate mortgage that your payment stays static, that means your amortization is going to get shorter. So that's the type of product that I have. I think I've shared with our listeners, I'm in a variable rate mortgage product. I have a good risk tolerance. Historically, about 60% of Canadians are in a fixed rate and about 40% are in variable or shorter term mortgages. And, anybody that's in a variable, I think they're going to be very happy today, Dan. And, I think anybody that's looking to buy a home, they're looking to do a renewal, a refinance. Overall, the cost of borrowing is going to be less. The one thing I do want to give a shout out to is just because the Bank of Canada lowered the key rate, that doesn't mean fixed rates are going to go down. In a lot of cases, the bond market has already priced in this change. So I think we're going to see fixed rates maybe stay more steady. Historically, variable rates have been much lower than fixed, even if we look over the last 25 years. But the last year or two, it hasn't been the case. But now the world is righting itself. Now a variable rate mortgage, by and large, is going to be at a lower borrowing cost than a fixed rate. So we're back to more of a normal pricing scheme, we'll call it.
We saw people during the aftermath of the pandemic, Clinton, when interest rates were I'm not going to say super high, but they were more than they are today. Get into
some edging up even on like 7%.
Right, and getting into shorter term mortgages into 1 year, 2 year renewals and in the fixed areas so that they could have a little bit of stability and know how much their mortgage was going to be at the end of the day. Those are coming due now, and this might be a good opportunity for a conversation about renewing that mortgage and getting into maybe a variable product.
I have customers that reach out to me every day about potentially breaking their mortgage early, especially some of the ones that we did like 2 and 3 years ago. Some of these borrowers are coming out of rates at like 6%, 5%, and now we can get them maybe in low 4s, maybe in the 3s. And, it's not necessarily about lowering their cost of borrowing, Dan. It's lowering the monthly output of principal and interest. That's really what a lot of these borrowers are most concerned with today. Oftentimes, if you break your mortgage early, you're going to pay a penalty, and that penalty is probably offset by the lower borrowing cost. But, every payment that you're making is made up of a principal and an interest payment. And if you have a lower monthly payment, and I think that's oftentimes a win for a lot of households because everyone's stretched. And it's not just the mortgage interest rates that are, stretching people. It's fuel. It's the cost of groceries.
Yeah.
Everything that we are buying today costs more than it did a year ago, by and large. And so I think that if we can bring the actually monthly output of mortgage payments down, whether that's playing with the amortization, whether that's getting a lower interest rate, that's helpful for a lot of households because there's only so many dollars to go around.
Canadian Real Estate Association last week, I think it was, put out some new data, Clinton, that said that house prices across the country dropping about 5%. You've discussed this before on your show on Mortgage 101, saying that Halifax tends to lag behind that a little bit. What are you seeing here in the market?
I wouldn't even say it's lagging, Dan. I think we've gone the other way. So in Halifax, our average house price is still up like over 3% on average here, where there are areas in Ontario that are down 25%. 17%, right. BC down, and a lot of the other cities across the country down. Halifax, we've gone the other way, partially because we never had those big increases. It might feel like we've had big increases because, the values really have gone up since 2019, 2020, but we haven't seen the increases that they had. A lot of these areas had double-digit growth for years. Where, yes, we had more maybe thoughtful and planful growth. We're talking about 3%, 5%. That is more sustainable. And we've continued to see some growth in the price, primarily because of the lack of supply. Yes, we're seeing more homes getting listed, and the homes are sitting maybe on the marketplace a little bit longer than they were before. But any of those homes that are around that $600,000 mark, which is about the median mark, they are selling, and they are selling quick still here in Halifax and really across Atlantic Canada. Anywhere that's around the median, that's moving. In other markets, it's not the case. So, in terms of a safer bet, in terms of real estate, it certainly has been Halifax, and it certainly has been Atlantic Canada. And, we haven't kept up with the amount of demand in terms of new units. Yes, we see a lot of apartments going up, even right around the studio here at 95.7. There's towers in the sky that were not here 5 years ago. There's a lot more rental units coming on board. That is helping with the overall demand to satisfy it here in Halifax. Because just think, the little old lady and the little old man that would have potentially gone into an apartment, there were no apartments to have. And the cost of the apartments obviously is very high, but some of that's righting itself, and more of that real estate is getting listed, which is the right type of real estate, oftentimes for first-time home buyers.
Very quickly, we've only got about a minute left here. Clinton, Mortgage 101 coming up on the weekend. What's on tap for this month's edition?
Well, it's going to be November by the time the show is on this Saturday and Sunday, and it's Financial Literacy Month. And financial literacy is just so important, Dan, and I'm glad to be a part of the conversation. Overall, the financial literacy of Canadians is very low. And I think by us even talking about this and, having this on the show, we're breaking down some barriers. I hope people go home tonight and they talk about the Bank of Canada. Talk about your income, talk about your assets, talk about your credit, break some of these barriers down at the dinner table. And I think those healthy conversations, will certainly help increase the financial literacy across the board. And I'm glad that we're able to be a part of the conversation. And we're just really getting it kicked off because we're going to do 2 shows here in November for Financial Literacy Month. We're doing our show that's going to be on Saturday and Sunday. And then we're doing a special live show here at the end of the month. So we're certainly
we had
very
a lot
excited.
of fun with it last year, and it was very, very informative. So I'm glad that we're able to do that again. Mortgage 101 this weekend goes at 11 o'clock. Clinton, we're out of time. Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
We're going to hold you to that extra quarter point. That's going to happen
Okay,
next
well,
year.
I'll put the prediction on for January.
There you go. Clinton Wilkins, you can hear him on Saturday and on Sunday at 11 o'clock right here on 95.7 News Radio. Time to stop and take a break. On the other side of it, lines are open. It's time for the open hour. Is it time for us to get tough on retail crime? 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the news. Welcome back. It is Wednesday. It is time for the open hour. The lines are now open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Before we get any deeper into the open hour, I just want to say hello and welcome home to members of the ship's company of HMCS Edmonton and Yellowknife. They returned home today from their mission of the Standing NATO Mine Countermeasures Group in Eastern European waters. From July through October, the ships, alongside teams of clearance divers and autonomous underwater vehicles, those AUVs, and 10-person mine countermeasure teams from the Royal Danish Navy embarked aboard HMCS Edmonton as part of Operation Reassurance. Their contributions supported to maritime security and countermeasures, reinforcing safety by contributing these 2 Kingston-class, this is a release from the DND, by the way, these 2 Kingston-class maritime coastal defense vehicles, part of NATO's readiness. At sea presence, Canada demonstrated its continued commitment to Operation Reassurance. So I know that that being deployed is a stretch, not only for the members aboard those 2 vessels, but also for their families and friends that are still here in Halifax and having loved ones home, particularly as we get closer to the end of the year. I know there was a lot of happy families today with people getting back off of those ships. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. This is the Midweek Meltdown. This is an opportunity for you to talk about whatever it is on your mind. That's the beauty of open line radio. There's a lot going on out there. My goodness, did you follow that story yesterday about the youth that was arrested by Halifax Regional Police, part of a couple of online groups that were targeting children in on some of the game platforms that they play. I've heard Minefield, I heard Roblox. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, those two very popular platforms for kids to play games. It's a scary time out there. And I think the prevailing message, at least from what I saw from Chief McLean and from HRP, was to be mindful of what your kids are doing online. It's a dangerous, dangerous place, and something as safe looking as a game like Minecraft or like Roblox is not a safe place, and these kind of things can happen. So be mindful of what your kids are doing. Also, an earlier conversation with Jim Cormier from the Retail Council of Canada talking about the epidemic that has become retail crime, not only here in Atlantic Canada, but across the country. I don't think you have to go very far, probably not outside of your family circle, to hear stories of someone witnessing this or being victim of retail crime. I got a number of emails from store owners on Spring Garden Road and in downtown Halifax and in Dartmouth in response to that article saying that they've just given up. They call the police don't come. And I'll tell you that, as I mentioned in the interview, that this doesn't just impact that store owner. That store owner loses those goods, those prices go up, and then you and I have to pay those prices. And it's a safety issue, right? Email from Gordon, who emails me quite frequently, said that the last time he chased a shoplifter out of his store, or I don't even want to call them shoplifters anymore, because that comes across as like the victimless crime, right? And somebody stealing a chocolate bar or a bottle of pop or whatever. These can be at times significant thefts. And Gordon telling me the last time that he chased somebody who was stealing stuff from the store out the door, he pulled a knife. And then laughed at him. I've heard stories, and you've heard the stories as well, from theft at the NSLC, where people are going into the store and they're filling carts and just walking out. I had an experience myself at a retail store not that long ago where a gentleman was in the store and filled up a shopping cart of kids' toys, of all things. And literally pushed the cart out the door, waved at the person behind the counter, and then just went about their business. We've lost the deterrence. Now, there's been a lot of talk, particularly during the last election campaign and in the wake of it, that we need to change the laws in Canada. We need to change the so-called, and I'm going to put quotes around this, the catch and release that I know Pierre Poilievre has been talking about. Jim Cormier mentioned it in our interview earlier today. There's an awful lot of concerns I have about, the system. And putting more police officers on the street, as Jim had alluded to, having beat cops and a stronger police presence is one thing, but we know that particularly here, there's a lot of that deterrent that just isn't happening anymore. We talked about it when we were talking about bad drivers. When's the last time you saw a radar trap? And if this retail crime is, and I have no reason to doubt that it's not, as prevalent as it is, the police are going to be stretched thin. And when they do respond and they do catch someone and put them into the system, the judges are cutting them loose because there's such a backlog in the court system, and the Crown attorneys are reluctant to prosecute because they know they're not going to get a conviction. And then if we do, where do we put these people? We hear stories about a lack of staff at provincial jails and prisons. I've raised that question a number of times on the program about where we put people, and what is the solution to build more jails and to hire more jail guards, and that comes with a price tag attached to it, doesn't it, folks? But I feel the just the level of dumbfoundedness that people are having that are working in this sector that are saying, I just don't get it. We do what we're supposed to do. We put cameras in. We get pictures of people. We send it all to the powers that be, and then nothing gets done. And the crooks know that, or they wouldn't be so brazen. Well, is it time that we put a stop to it? I know there's a significant investment that would be required in that. But there used to be enough of a fear of prosecution and enough of a fear of going to jail or to prison that, and I hate to call them these, but these petty crimes, people would think twice about it. But now they know the store clerks have been told not to intervene because of safety concerns. The fella that I saw waved at the person behind the counter like, thanks, see ya, have a nice day. And just went about his business. Is the solution more cops and more jails? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We can talk about that. We can talk about this I don't even know what to call it. We've gone down two times previous with a proposal for a golf course in a provincial park in Cape Breton. I thought we were done with it. But that apparently isn't the case. Apparently there's a developer out there that is sniffing around putting another golf course up in West Mabou Provincial Park. I always was under the impression, and maybe I'm naive, but I was under the impression that provincial parks were hands off. Somebody sent me an email and said that provincial parks don't belong to the government. They belong to you and I. I tend to agree. It just seems that as of late, with the economy in the situation that it's in, that all bets are on the table now, right? We've seen the resource development card get played. We saw the uranium card get played that was essentially off the table for many years here. We're talking about the natural gas off of Nova Scotia again that was shut down. We're talking about building this massive wind project. We're talking about developers putting golf courses in provincial parks or eating up parts of provincial parks. What is going on, folks? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues right after the break. Welcome back. This is the open hour. Lines are open. There's a number of lines available to you. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Got an email during the break from somebody that said, Dan, I can't agree with you more. Absolutely can't agree with you more. The open hour is your hour. It's your opportunity to join the show and have a discussion. But when there's nobody on the line, it's very difficult to do that. So if you're on the fence or you're waiting or whatever, here's a great opportunity. Vanessa is looking forward to taking your call. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Charles to the program. Charles, how are you?
Great, Dan. Yourself?
I'm well. What's on your mind today, sir?
Well, I just say I do like the sound of your voice, so please keep talking. We appreciate it.
It makes for a long day when I have to talk for so much time, man.
And I guess if I could sum up, you're provocative in a good manner. You referenced natural gas exploration, the wind energy,
right?
Golf courses in provincial parks, et cetera. So I have one word for all of it. I would describe it as progress.
You think?
Yep, in my opinion. Okay. I would suggest this. I would suggest that since Confederation, Nova Scotia has tried many things and has had successful industry and successful people that have come out of Nova Scotia. But I think the model that we've been operating under for the last 155, 160 years, whatever time since Confederation, could use a tweaking, a retooling. I'm not in for selling off, all the crown jewels in bulk, but I think we have a lot to offer here, particularly with wind, and also I think natural gas. So my take on it, if you look kind of worldwide, something as simple as the Eiffel Tower, which everyone looks at as this worldwide icon, that was the most controversial, hated structure on the face of the earth when the Eiffel Tower was built. Everybody thought, it's got to come down after the exhibition in Paris. It's horrendous.
It was ugly. They thought it was ugly.
Yep. It's probably the most photographed building in the world. Right. Now, I'm not suggesting that our wind turbines are going to be the Eiffel Tower, but the mindset, I think, is such that it's very easy to oppose things. It's very easy to put up both hands at a public meeting to oppose something, but to actually come forth, and I'm nonpartisan. I don't carry any political cards. I've voted for all parties, so I'm not speaking as a mouthpiece of the government by any stretch. That's for sure. Well, they could improve in a lot of areas, but I just think progress is what I seem to see for Nova Scotia. And I think that, could you imagine the next 20 to 50 years where we would become an energy superpower, we would have growth, we would become dynamic, and we wouldn't be waiting for something to happen to us. We would be out there making it happen.
It's interesting, Charles, and I appreciate your point. Nova Scotia was founded back in the early days on industry, right? We came here, we had all the lumber. Fishery was paramount, and many people were employed for many years in Nova Scotia in resource-based industries.
Yeah, we're still a province that has a tremendous amount of potential. From what I can see, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And with all the good and the bad and the in between, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I'm prepared to deal with if there's such a thing, deal with any problems that would be associated with prosperity. I think that's something I'd be prepared to deal with here.
Fair enough. Appreciate the call, Charles.
Okay, thanks.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That all being said, right, there with industry and resource development comes the other side of the coin. And I mentioned that this province was founded on resources, right? It was founded way back when the country was founded on the fur trade all those years ago, right? It was the top hat, the what men wanted to wear, and the pelts were what founded this country, what started exploration in this country. And then we lived off of resources, and I know many of you are talking to your radio right now, saying, well, like my father or my grandfather worked on a mine or logging or fishing or whatever else was happening in the province. But we did see that the fishery is a prime example of what happens when we go willy-nilly into something and don't take into account that it's a finite resource, right? There was going to be fish forever, and that just wasn't the case. Now, was there mismanagement? Of course there was. Was there greed? Absolutely there was. But what's to say that there isn't that kind of mindset in the new resource-based industries? I saw a news story yesterday. New Brunswick is looking at utilizing its earth minerals. And I thought it was very interesting that the Green Party leader, David Kuhn, is in support of restarting the potash mine in Sussex. So I think our future is going to include resource development. I really do. But I just hope that we don't get into boom and bust like we see with the oil sands in Alberta. That could be very difficult for a province of our size to deal with. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go back to the phones and welcome Joe to the show. Joe, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Sorry. I want to talk about the weather on Friday, which was Alistair said high winds and rain.
Yep.
And I know for a fact that my building in particular, we dress the foyer up. Everybody dresses up and comes down, and the landlords dress it up. And we have over 100 little ones coming, and they make up bags for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just my building. But I mean, all over HRM, all these children that, like, are the parents going to take them out in that kind of weather? I don't think so. I would hope not.
It all depends how bad it is, right?
Yeah, but my suggestion would be to postpone it till Saturday, because Saturday is not going to be rain and wind and everything. And what would it hurt one more day? Because all those little ones are going to be so disappointed because the parents won't take them out because of that. And, the forecast, Alice has said that, high winds and rain.
Yep.
And the possibility outweighs the probability.
Joe, we'll put that out there. Should we we'll ask the listeners out there what they think if we should delay Halloween by a day to get better weather. Appreciate the call.
Thank you.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. I don't even know who regulates that. I know that there's been instances where trick-or-treating's been canceled for safety reasons, but I don't think that the weather's going to be bad enough on Friday night or Friday evening to warrant it to be canceled because of safety reasons. Now, I stand to be corrected on that, but let's throw that out there. Should we cancel it or move it? I shouldn't say cancel is probably a bad word. Should we move it to facilitate a better weather day for trick-or-treating, as Joe did suggest? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after the news. All right, welcome back. A few minutes left here in the open hour. A couple of lines open if you want to get in. We'll do our very best to get to all of the callers that are on the line. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255 is the number. Let's get right to the phones and welcome Mitchell to the show. Mitchell, how are you?
I am very good, and you?
I am well, sir. What's on your mind?
I live in Bridgewater, and I think it would be wise if they move Halloween to Saturday.
Why is that?
For the kids. Because of the big storm here. It's giving out the rain.
So you think that it's going to be bad enough out there on Friday that we should move it to Saturday?
Yep, I think it should be moved.
Fair enough. Mitchell, appreciate the call, sir.
Yep, all right.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Donna, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
What's on your mind today?
I just wanted to agree, or I always agree with what Chris has to say, but about all the crimes and whatnot. I feel so bad for the merchants because they're losing money, right. And then and they have to raise their prices to cover their losses, and the consumers are paying. And just here the other day, you probably heard it in the news just this week, 18-year-old teenager was picked up when he smashed his car, his parents' car, whoever, and the police, he tried to bribe them because they wanted him to do a breathalyzer test, tried to bribe him with money. Now he's in big trouble. In my opinion, that kid should lose his license for at least 10 years. But they probably won't. He'll get a slap on the wrist. And there was another, you probably heard about this too, 13-year-old kid here in Halifax was charged with a bomb threat at the Halifax shopping center.
Saw that today, yep.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. I don't know what's wrong with the kids. The kids today, and a lot of parents say, oh, my child wouldn't do this, my child wouldn't do that. Duh. The kids today are spoiled, rotten. They're entitled and anything they want. And I don't know if they think it's fun doing these things or what, but it's ridiculous. And I do feel sorry for the police officers because you can't go to every merchant that's getting shoplifting. They say you can't call it shoplifting, but it's stealing. And I don't know. Maybe they should teach kids about this in school instead of some of the other stupid things they're teaching them, and tell them, this is what's going to happen. But it's out, and even they were saying the cases of youth crimes is popping up in Canada. It's getting worse and worse. But Anyway, that's my thing. And I do feel sorry for the merchants because they're the losers. I mean, people, you see them on TV smashing into these, especially up in Ontario, smashing into the jewelry stores. And they don't care. They just go in with their hammers or whatever, smash and take the stuff, and away they go. But something has to be done. I don't know what the answer is, but kids aren't afraid of anything anymore. That's the big thing. My parents would have, if any of us got picked up doing anything, we'd have been in big, big trouble.
I hear you.
But I don't know what it is. Anyway, that's my complaint or whatever today. But I do feel sorry for the merchants.
So do I. Appreciate your call, Donna.
Okay, you have a good day.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Got an email from Don who writes, Dan, two terms which can drive me up the wall are NIMBY and progress. Often callers will make negative comments about people who advocate a NIMBY alternative, but who, in their right mind, would advocate for IMPY, which would mean in my backyard. The rational person would proclaim, hey, why don't they build that huge pig farm right next to my yard? Of course a person is rational and would be a NIMBY advocate. Progress is always promoted, but progress is not necessarily a good thing. Who would say, my cancer is progressing, so that isn't a great thing? Callers should use their terms carefully, and that comes from Dawn. I get it, and we do get a lot of people advocating for things. I mean, all of the contentious issues as of late have been neighbors that have said no. Look, Dartmouth Cove, and neighbors have said no, got some action there. However, if you saw the news articles over the last day or so, the federal government has said that they can infill there. So I don't think that argument is over. But you get my point. If something is egregious in your neighborhood or it may impact your property value, you of course are going to complain about it. I think that is a natural thing to do. I think that we need to explore resource development in Nova Scotia, but we need to do it the right way. We can't let industry drive the bus. Because if we do, as I said earlier, they're going to just soak the maximum amount of profit out of it, and we'll be left with the after effects or the ill effects when we're done. Appreciate each and every one of you for picking up the phone, dialing the numbers, and joining the conversation. I truly appreciate it. We mentioned yesterday in our conversation about the now independent MLA for Lunenburg West. That's Becky Drouin. She is out, announcing on Monday that she would no longer sit in the PC caucus and would sit as an independent in the legislature after getting turfed a week before from her position in the Houston cabinet. We said we were going to reach out to Becky Drouin to see if she'd join the show, and we've done that, and she is going to do that tomorrow morning right off the top of the program at 10 o'clock. So I hope that you can stick around and join our conversation with that. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with the former minister and now independent MLA. Of course, tomorrow is Thursday. It's the last Thursday of the month as well, so that means that we're going to change things up a little bit in the noon hour segment. We're going to welcome back our veterinarian from Bedford. That's Dr. Jeff Goodall, and we'll answer all of your pet-related questions. If you have something you'd like to ask the doctor and you have it in mind, make sure you're by your radio, by your phone at 10 o'clock, and I will caution you again that this is a popular segment, so get your calls in early. That way you will avoid disappointment. Blue Jays tonight, folks. It's a pivotal game. Game 5 always is pivotal, but this one can mean a lot for the Toronto Blue Jays, with that series now tied at 2 games apiece. Can they win 2 of 3 in Los Angeles and come home with the ability to win the World Series? Can you imagine? We're back to starting pitching. Trey Savage will be facing Blake Snell tonight. That game will go at 9 o'clock, and you'll be able to catch it all live right here. First pitch is just after 9 o'clock on 95.7 News Radio. Don't forget as well, the Mooseheads are in action tonight. They're in Quebec, in Blainville, Boisbriand, and we will be splitting the network as we have done through the Major League Baseball playoffs. We'll put the Moosehead's game onto the stream once the Blue Jays game starts just after 9. So if you're following the Moosehead's game and want to get its conclusion, you can switch over to however it is you listen to streams, be it on your phone, be it on your smart speaker, or you can leave it on the radio and catch the Blue Jays. Go, Jays, go. Thanks to Vanessa on the other side of the glass. Be well, everyone, and remember, be kind to one another. During the break, I was watching one of the news channels, and they had a shot of that summit in Korea with the world leaders sitting around a table, and Donald Trump sitting at the 12 o'clock position on the clock, and Mark Carney sitting at the 6 o'clock position. It didn't look like it was frosty, but I can imagine that there may have been a nerve or two in there somewhere, right? And why is it when they have these tables at these dinners that they're so high up? Like, it was 3/4 of the way up of Mark Carney's chest. I know I'm terrible for spilling stuff on my clothes when I'm eating dinner. Is that what they do it for? I don't know. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Steve to the show. Steve, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to point out, like the gentleman that called, the second last caller there, he's right on the money. You know, we need to move forward with some of these projects that are going on, you know, and I'm not suggesting that we just throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing.
Right.
You know, proper assessments need to be done, but I think we really have to get on with it. You know, one of the things that's bothered me, I moved here about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And one thing I've noticed about Nova Scotia is what I would call the NIMBY crowd, you know, the not in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, say no to open, like the salmon fishing, say no to an asphalt plant, say no to uranium mining. It seems like it's no, 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 no. And yet you have a province that's a have-not province that can't really sustain itself. We're not providing opportunity for youth to remain in the province. So and it's generally a vocal crowd of a certain age or demographic that tend to be, you know, hard over on some of these items. And for whatever reason, they manage to get things to stick. So I really kind of shake my head sometimes when I hear, oh, well, we don't want this, we don't want that, but we want all of the Medicare and everything else like that. You know, like, money's got to come from someplace, so we need to get on with it.
I get people trying to protect their property, Steve. I really do, and their property values and that kind of thing. But you're right. I do hear a lot of people, particularly localized people in the area where things are happening, that do raise and sometimes, to be fair to them, sometimes they have legit concerns, like the folks around West Mabou Provincial Park, where we want to build a golf course in a provincial park, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, like, you know, natural beauty, you know, and I guess maybe I'm a hypocrite here, but, you know, I live in the St. Margaret's Bay area, mm-hmm. and I don't think I would be very keen to see a wind turbine in the middle of the bay.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this happened to a place where I used to live in Kingston, in Ontario. You know, the Kingston waterfront was beautiful, and then they put all these wind turbines in, and it really changed the aesthetic of how it looked. But anyway, I mean, you know, we got to look forward to the future here, and if we're trying to be a little more independent from the United States, then we're going to have to make some hard decisions. And, you know, the natural gas and, you know, utilizing resources. People want to go green. They want to use more electricity. But how do you generate that electricity? Wind farms don't cut it, so you're going to need uranium to operate small reactors. You know, like, I don't know. We just need to get on with things, I think.
Steve, appreciate the call.
No worries. Take care, Dan.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I think Steve made our point, did he not? He wants to see wind and resources done, but didn't want to see them in his St. Margaret's Bay, and I don't blame him. My concern about resource development, I won't take a lot of time up here, but is it feels like the provincial government is turning over things to the industry, right? You know, if the industry does this or industry depended on that. We saw the uranium mine question get opened up to industry. Nobody bit because the regulation is so tough. So now the regulations are going to change so that they can make it more lucrative for business. Business is going to try and do what business can to make the absolute most amount of money of anything they do. That's what business does. I think there's a happy medium there. Let's welcome Colin to the show. Colin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind today?
I was just kind of chiming in on the lady had called before about pushing Halloween out another day.
Mm-hmm.
My mother-in-law told me that a few years ago in Cape Breton, they actually moved it a day because they had ice rain or something like that. So maybe for safety concerns, and you don't want your little one out, and they're already sick enough all the time. So keeping them nice and dry for the night, and then going to get some candy on Saturday.
So you're for it, Colin, is what I'm reading into that.
I'm for it.
Fair
I'm
enough.
for it. I don't want to be out in the rain.
It's not the kids, it's you, right?
Yeah, well, a little bit.
Have a good one, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. There's a lot of dads out there that are thinking the same way Colin is, right? I don't want to go stand on the sidewalk while my kids trick-or-treating in the rain. I get it. And the ice rain, or the freezing rain, I get. And the safety concern, I get. But and I will check with Alistair again as we get closer to Halloween. I don't think the rain that we're expecting is a dangerous level. I think it might be a little bit breezy. It's certainly not hurricane strength, and I don't think it's going to be torrential downpours. In fact, Alistair said that it likely will taper off in the afternoon toward the evening hours. It might still be raining, but I don't think it's going to be a safety issue. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Chris to the show. Chris, how are you?
Good. How are you this afternoon?
I am well, sir. What's on your mind today?
That's good. Well, yeah, I think they should probably delay Halloween, and it's not so much for the kids; it's for the parents because.
Yep.
Listen, remember when you were a kid? If somebody said, "Dan, run across the street. There's a candy bar over there for you." You go out in a blizzard; it wouldn't matter. You'd have gone there to get it.
I still might.
You still might. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one. So I think it's more for the parents and the supervisors of the kids, which is fair ball. Also, a lot of people, especially in my community or my area of town, they set up tables at the end of their driveway right alongside of the sidewalk and have the candy laid out for the kids to help themselves and so on. And some people dress in costume. I know my next-door neighbor does. And he stands there and gives out the candy. So in a pouring down rainstorm, it might be a little bit difficult. So yeah, I don't think it would hurt to move it to Saturday night if Saturday night's actually going to be better. And you mentioned about Carney, the table. Dan, it's not that the table is high; it's that Carney is quite short.
He is. But there's a lot of short people at that table because I looked at it and they were all kind of Trump. I think is probably because Trump is fairly tall, right? So I think
Trump's 6'3", I believe.
So I think they probably set the table for him.
He lies all the time anyway. So.
But the rest of everybody else was like, when you're in those. Remember when you used to go to the booths in the old restaurants and the tables were really high and it was hard to eat?
Yeah, it was. Well, that's why they had the booster seats for kids. Maybe they should have had a booster seat for Carney.
Can you imagine? Wow.
But they showed a group of them on one news clip I was watching, and Trump was, I think, in this particular clip at least, he was the tallest one there. So he's not unusually tall, but he's above average, and so it wouldn't show up on him. But just thought I'd bring that up.
Not often you can say above average and Trump in the same sentence, can you?
Well, let's say as a liar, he's above average. But my sister wrote this, and I hate to say shoplifting, but this retail
theft, yeah.
It's gone way, way, way beyond and out of control. This is unbelievable.
It is.
My father used to run a retail store, and he had his own answer for that. It was a baseball bat under the counter. Too bad you can't sort of take the law into your own hands in these situations, but the staff certainly can't. And really, if it's the staff of a chain store or a big retail outlet, they shouldn't be expected to.
Right.
For that sake.
Well, it's a safety issue, right?
Sure, it is a safety issue. My sister spent 26 years in Saudi Arabia in Riyadh in the medical profession over there, and she told me stories about walking through the markets and going into what they call the gold souks, which is like a lineup of little stores that sell gold, basically chains and bracelets and what have you. And she said many times she'd go in there and there was no one there. The owner had gone across the street to get a coffee or to get his lunch or whatever, left the store open, unlocked, and totally unattended. They didn't have the problem with theft because of the penalties involved and that sort of thing, because you don't get hauled into court and then released on bail in Saudi Arabia if you steal something. It doesn't work that way over there. And I think we should be a little more stringent with the penalties for this sort of thing. You brought up a good point. We tend to trivialize, I think, shoplifting as being, oh yeah, it's the 10-year-old goes in and he takes a candy bar and puts it in his pocket. And that's not the stuff Spring Garden Road is complaining about.
No, not at all.
That.
Yeah.
Maybe as an approach to it, they should put out a bunch of plainclothes policemen patrolling Spring Garden Road, pick different districts, be it Quinpool one day, Spring Garden the next, and so on, because the uniform, it's the same as you're driving down the street and you see a cop car with the lights and everything. You automatically, we all do it, you automatically check your speed and slow down. Even if you're not speeding, you instinctively want to hit that brake and slow down a little bit. But if you see, you don't see the plainclothes or the ghost car until it's too late, until the red and blues are flashing in your rearview mirror. So it's the same thing with a police officer in uniform. If you're looking to steal something from one of these stores and you see a police officer in uniform, well, you're going to wait till he or she passes by, aren't you? But the average person walking down the street, you don't know if they're in plain clothes. You don't know if they're a cop or who they are, really.
Fair points, Chris. I appreciate it, sir.
So maybe they should do that.
Have a great one.
Thank you.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To Chris's point, yeah, I do it. I look at the speedometer immediately. But I think the business owners in those retail districts would be happy for people to think twice about going into that store in the first place if they saw a beat cop, right? Because you don't know, and if they're frequent and you don't know when they're going to be or where they're going to be, then maybe that's the visual deterrent that we're looking for. I hear that big chain stores and larger retail establishments are hiring uniformed security guards just for that visual deterrent. Maybe that's the solution. We're going to stop, take our last break here. The open hour continues on the other side. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes.